It's just reference.
Okay, it's about 2:02. I'd like to call the 14 Mile Watershed Alliance meeting to order for February 14th, Valentine's Day. Our notes says confirm the Zoom setup. I see it's working. We've got Karen and I see some other folks that aren't on camera, but thank you for participating. I'd like to start with a roll call on my left.
Lee Singer here.
Dave Trudeau here.
Phil Rackenbach. Pankowski here.
Barb, you're right.
I don't know if I say here, but I'm not there, but I'm online here, Karen Kanota.
You're present.
Yes, I'm present.
Okay, everybody should have received minutes from January 10th, our last meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve as presented. Second.
Any discussion, comments, corrections? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Announcements. I don't think you have anything to add in terms of announcements. Okay, item number 5 then. Kyle can give us a bit of an update on 9 key element.
Is this the microphone here?
Right here.
Okay, there. So can everybody online hear me all right?
Can't see him.
I can, oh, yeah, take camera, that's right.
Yeah, feel free to pull the chair up there. Cynthia
All right.
said yes. She can hear you.
Okay, how about that?
Perfect.
There we go. Oh, oops, plop in here because the camera's not tall enough. It's gonna be in our deal every time, I swear. All right. So for the 9 key element plan, we made a bunch of progress thus far on unpacking the plan itself and unpacking the priorities. I just finished a draft this morning for the 12-month kind of a plan on individual action items that I'll be taking over the next 12 months, then broken down again into a 6-month priority and then 3 months for the year, divvying that up. I've met with numerous partners from the various counties, from Wood County, Shara, and Portage County. Virtually, I've met with them just to discuss participation, and then also with the DNR a couple of times, just unpacking the plan and really kind of working on Adams County's priorities and then my priorities within the 9 key element plan. Its milestones and implementation. As there was a bit of a discussion earlier, we've been making, I've been making some revisions to the content in the 9 key element plan just for clarity, and developing a little bit better presentation of the material, hopefully getting some milestones and action items put onto the website for the county's website, along with an interactive map, just so we can kind of more easily identify, like, is this in the 9 key element plans watershed, right? Is it in the 14 mile watershed? And then also, you know, what priorities or what milestones are the greatest priority within that area, wherever, let's say if you have a house within a property within the 14 mile watershed, it should all be viewable. But at the next meeting, I'll have that 12-month plan available. It'll line up specifically what milestones are being addressed, and then how those are addressing the milestones. So those are some of the bigger things I'm working on. Very importantly, we have scheduled an informational meeting for the 14 mile watershed. There's going to be 2 of them. One is going to be in Plainfield and one is going to be here in town, in Rome at the town community center across the hall here. This is going to be open to the public, informational meeting, and I myself will be present to answer questions. Do a short presentation, similar in vein to what was done in 2018, but bringing everybody up to speed on what the 14 mile 9 key element plan is, what it contains, and what our plans are. So that's going to be in Plainfield at 5:30 at the town hall on March 16th. And there's going to be another meeting here in Rome on March 22nd at 5:30. identical meetings, both times, same presentation, same content. Although some of the frequently asked questions might be updated at that point, but the general public's invited. I'll be advertising this as far and wide as I can, and I'll be sending out material. This is just to save the date at this point. So part of what I want to kind of do is especially maybe not at this meeting, but coordinate with partners such as 14 Mile Watershed Alliance and others for what they'd like to discuss and have presented at that meeting. So just putting out that RSVP, save the date, and look for more information on that coming up.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd like to kind of keep track of these items on the agenda, but not take them in the order that they're listed for discussion's sake. I think I'd like to start with announcing for everybody who doesn't know, but I think everybody should know that we were or will be awarded $5,000 surface water education grant. As of last Friday, Don had not yet received the agreement. I know that the agreements are coming out because the Healthy Lakes agreement for going through Tri-Lakes, that did get to them already, so it should be coming very shortly. And the main thing we need to know is that we can't actually start spending on that grant, against that grant, until March 15th. That's the date of the grant period, and that will be the date that's in that agreement that we'll be signing.
Dave, can you tell us what that money is going to be used for?
Well, we'll be going through actually checklist here, so I'm
Okay.
gonna ask everybody that has it handy to pull up section 5 of the surface water application grant. We can kind of go through those items. I do want to remind everybody that initially we were going to apply this as a 1-year grant, but we did. I thought that might be put too much pressure on us to get every one of these items accomplished in 1 year. So when we did apply, we applied at the closing date of December 31st, 2023. So even though we have all these items we say we're going to do as part of this grant, as we have our discussion here, we can kind of prioritize for what we can kind of start on right away. And, what things might take a little longer to get in order. And, might be a priority for either later in the year or maybe even into 2023.
Question, Dave. Do we intend to apply for advance payment? Grant? Is that an option?
Yes, it's an option to get. I'd have to remind myself. Barb probably remembers the advance. And what do you remember what percentage they'll advance?
I think it's 25%, maybe 25 to 50%. Something like that. So I mean, $2,500.
And it's really easy to do. I mean, it's just a checkbox on the
On the form.
on the. Why don't we just go through these line by line? We want to do a newsletter. The first 3 items have to do with that, design, printing, mailing. The cost of anything have probably increased slightly from what we anticipated when we wrote the grant. So any discussion on that? I assume that's something we want, that's fairly high priority.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that we really wanted to get off the ground this spring, if at all possible, so we can get it out to all the people in the watershed, make them aware of the 9 key element plan, and then we're gonna start moving forward with it and other things that are being done and how they can help.
David, with the newsletter, is that strictly for who the 14 Mile Watershed Alliance is, or is that just promoting the 9 key element plan? Or is it a combination of both?
It'll probably be a little bit both, but you'll see farther down, we do have, are planning on making a 9 key element brochure that'll go into more detail, but certainly any announcements in the newsletter, 9 key elements, obviously going to be pertinent item, prominent, pertinent, so. Next item is the Healthy Lake sign design. Producing some signs, I think we were probably talking some kind of a sign, kind of like we did with the fertilizer ordinance, promoting that. So this is kind of the standard. Two by two sign, whatever those dimensions are. Single sided, double sided. We can make those kinds of decisions later. But,
So these were meant to go on properties where people have gotten the grants and have done
yes, to
shoreline restoration.
identify projects.
Okay.
And I'd kind of like to see them used, even we can identify properties that are in compliance that people did projects that weren't necessarily the grant projects too, but you know, we want to promote the grant funding, we just want to.
So Dave,
The project,
those are going to be on the lakeside then primarily? Is that what you're trying to get from these?
that's
or
what
they-
I envision.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where they should go.
Dave, question, are you, as we go through these, are you looking for individuals to volunteer to take the lead on various items? Or is that a subject for
Probably a subject for another meeting, especially since Don is in attendance, to see what his involvement can be. Obviously, in our promotional materials, a lot of this falls on Karen, so.
Well, yeah, and that's fine. I mean, basically, I would like to get a group of us together and, maybe take an afternoon and brainstorm on what we want to do as far as this goes.
Any feedback on whether like a Healthy Lake sign is, folks feel that's another high priority item or maybe a medium priority if we don't get to it?
Personally, I think it's high priority. I think that I don't know how many people we have on Healthy Lakes yet. I guess we should figure out how many people would qualify, but I think it's great for getting people to understand what's going to work, what's going to help with our lakes. So my thought is, the quicker we get these out there, kind of like the Clean Water Cooperator, the quicker they spread.
As far as Healthy Lakes, I mean, I know we've had about 50 and then we've got 12 more with 2022. So we've got a little over 60, about 63 to 64 projects, but that equates to maybe, I'm going to say about 35 landowners, something in that ballpark. I can get more exact numbers before we order for this year, probably a little bit into the future.
I think that's a good amount.
It is a good amount.
Yeah, I think it's a really good amount. And I think that will help us to get people to recognize what we're doing. We have to have our name on it. We have to have 14 Mile Watershed on these signs. So people have a contact. Going through Healthy Lakes in the DNR is fine, but we're the contact for this program, so.
Yep.
We have to be prominent as well.
Any opportunity to get our name out and to get people more involved?
Dave, with those signs, are those metal signs or are they like the, not, I don't know.
Like
plastic?
election signs?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Pardon? I didn't-
I was wondering if they were like the metal signs that Healthy Lakes and Rivers gives out, or if they're the like election signs that,
The kind of the corrugated.
Yeah.
Corrugated plastic.
We're talking about the
Okay.
corrugated signs. The DNR signs, I know that they have come in and they're sitting somewhere between Pam Toshner and
Yeah.
Scott Provost, and they haven't made it to me yet, but I did ask for 50
okay,
Healthy Lake signs, so. The DNR metal ones, which are a very nice metal sign, but they're not as prominent though.
Right.
Either. You know, there may be a 10 by 12. Okay, next down our list, we're talking about outreach with coasters and or placemats. That's something we think we can accomplish in the near future, and we need to have a discussion now or a little later about what route we want to take, or try some of both.
I think placemats are a good idea, but there's very few restaurants in town that use them. But I think the applications be very limited, so I wouldn't put high priority on.
I did get some feedback along that line. I heard that Packers ordered promotional placemats a couple times, and the first round went pretty well. In the second round, they ordered like 3,000 or something, and they had 2,500 left. This is the rumor. So
The drink coasters are probably more prominent usage, and you've got limited information for signing or for information on it, but all the establishments use them.
well,
I
that's
agree.
looking
Yeah,
toward-
I agree.
What do you think, Karen?
Well, I'm always trying to promote us and get our name out there. So I think the coasters is a great idea. I kind of brought that up a long time ago because I went to Nemark and she showed me some of the coasters that they had done, and it would fit with our stickers. I mean, it's like our sticker and a coaster would work really well. Obviously, we can put our we can actually put 14mile.org in there, which I think is good. You always want to drive people to get information. So I like the idea. I think we should go for it. I think we should get it done before the season, the summer season comes along, because we're trying to reach the
For Memorial.
right, the seasonal people. So I think we really need to, I would like to see that done before that. Of course, we got to find a new printer. So, that's one of the things. And I've got a lot of brochures I need to do. So I'm going to have to be, figuring out where I'm going to get all that done.
Yes, indeed. Okay, I'm gonna mark that as another high priority. Next item is middle highway sign that we're talking about putting on the watershed on the main highway, so we have signs, telling us we're going to Rome, and towns and signs telling us when you're crossing the different streams between here. Can actually put some on some of the boundaries, north and south, and maybe even over toward Plainfield.
I know Don had
We're
made,
talking about
Don had made a lot of progress lining those up, and I will volunteer
to help with that.
to help or take that over if necessary. So, okay, put my name down.
Put your name down.
I've got
So Phil, Do you happen to know if they just say 14 Mile Watershed? That's what they say on them?
Well, that's, I'm not determined yet. I think we were imagining at various places, something like you are now entering the 14-mile watershed. And then those would be on the, I think, maybe on the county roads. And then we talked about a sign, I guess, on Highway 13. Well, as you come in from.
I would say north and south.
Yeah.
Jerry, are there any restrictions on the highway about placing these signs?
Well, there are, and Don has investigated that, and I will work with him to find out what he's learned and follow up on.
That has to be approved by the Wisconsin DOT. Go through the county, so yeah, there's a lot of rules you need to jump.
Oops.
But I think that can be done as early as we can arrange it.
Okay. Okay, next we're talking about a property owner brochure. Do you recall a little bit more, Karen, just what kind of information we were talking about? How this is different from the other brochures and information we were planning on putting together?
Actually, well, I don't think we've gone very far on this at all because I don't recall talking too much about this, but
Okay.
I mean, certainly we need to get together and figure out what, information is going to be key to the stakeholders here, the residents and non-residents. I mean, are we going to do a huge mailing? Is that what we're doing? I thought we were doing a survey, but are we doing a mailing on the brochures?
Well, that's what we put on the,
This,
in the grant, so I'm assuming that's what we concluded in our earlier discussion.
okay, so I guess,
It's 500, so that wouldn't be enough for like a mailing to everybody. But maybe this could be something for the farmer's market or different tools that we have out in the public.
What I can say about that too is I've been working on creating a property owners kind of folder. I know that Risa had created something in the past and had given them out. They're a little outdated, the ones that I have left, so I have some new property owner brochures on best practices, healthy shorelines, information like that. I have to create them for all of the lakes in Adams County, but what I can do is if at the farmer's market or at any outreach meetings you'd like, I can give you guys some of those, and then if you want to put
You wanna
your
get something
flyer,
that's more-
yeah, if you want to
Or
put
something more
something,
home specific. or
Yes.
something.
yep, Rome specific, you can put that in there, and then your guys's, the 14-mile watershed alliance brochure can be placed in there as well. So I'm
so,
looking for a few more handouts that have recently come out to be mailed to us.
so I think what I thought about this, what did it say exactly, Dave? What did the line say?
Property owner brochure design.
Okay. Yeah, I think what we were talking about is,
It would be some, what new and existing property owners need to know.
right. So I think we could I'm working right now on updating the lawn fertilizer brochure because we're going to put nitrates as 0 again. So that's got to be all changed.
Yeah.
And I've already started on that. I'm working on,
What points about that, right?
right. So I'm going to have to, we have to revise that on some level based on what Scott said. So I'm going to have to work with him, I guess, on that. And then on the other brochure, I was going to talk about this under publicity and community outreach, but on the other brochure I'm working on is the 9 key element. So I'm working on with Kyle, actually. Kyle Kuttner and I have talked about it. We had a meeting on it. We're working on that. So I think if we give out anything at the farmer's market, it's got to be not necessarily complicated. It's got to be simplistic. And then we can give them more information like about fertilizing and about the 9 key element, give them other informational pieces to go with that. Because anything we hand out, it's got to be bullet points and getting them interested. Does that make sense?
I wanted to add in a little bit on that too, especially when it comes to directing, like directing further inquiries and everything. So I talked to Karen about this as well for the 9E element plan. And we kind of worked out a little bit of how that approach is done. So the county will be putting together some, a specific brochure for best management practices within the watershed. And then we'll probably be developing something for specifically as towards what the county's doing when it comes to implementing the 14-mile 9 key element plan. So something to keep in mind with this particular publication for you guys as a watershed alliance, is to make sure that, you know, the publications that and the content that do touch on 14-mile as a watershed plan keeps a little bit more, I don't know, agnostic. Because what we want to do is we really want to keep the door open for multiple groups to come in and take part of the ownership. So I think something too that maybe, and Karen, this was just something I was thinking about today, is maybe when we're doing that, and you know, I don't think there's any problem with the group developing their own informational 9 key element plan, but you know, making sure to keep that as pardon?
Like a congruent.
Yeah, congruent with all the other publications that are going on. So Karen and I are working pretty closely on that. But then also maybe if, as towards branding it 14-mile watershed alliance, maybe if you guys have a specific pamphlet, something saying like, you know, our part of implementation, and then you know, everybody else can kind of have that space for ownership and participation. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're keeping in mind that in advocacy, we also want to, and you know, trying to get the name out for 14-mile watershed alliance, that it's still creating enough room for other people to step in and get that sense of ownership with the watershed plan itself and
We
implementation.
need to
So
promote that it's a multiple partnership,
right, yeah, and so
or it's not gonna happen.
right,
Right.
and we want to recognize, right, that you know the 14-mile watershed alliance has done a ton of work in making this plan happen and making that follow through, and then helping to implement it as well. So I mean, certainly, like I was talking to Karen when we were talking about design on the initial pamphlet, right? We'll put on there, it's just a general like informational pamphlet about the 9 key element plan, and on there, you know, you guys can have like a watermark that'll say like produced, you know, for the produced by, you know, 14-mile watershed alliance. But then on there for primary contact on that would be just sending it to the county for my name, just, and then I'll send it to Anna as appropriate, or, you know, that way we kind of have, we don't have any confusion too with the general population on like, okay, who do we go to as point contact? Because then you guys got to bounce it back to me, and then I've got to, so if we can keep one central clearinghouse for information, and kind of, I don't want to partition for certain, any of the information from 14-mile watershed, 9 key element plan from 14-mile watershed. I just want to make sure that we avoid any confusion when participant or, you know, community members are trying to come together for this.
Right.
And-
And we need to make sure that the messaging is consistent and
Right.
at one point of contact. So
Yeah,
better way to do that.
And just an
Yeah.
easy way to make sure that everybody is getting recognized is take a little chunk of that pamphlet and put something along the lines of, here are our collaborators, and then it's
Yep, some bunch of
the
logos.
county, and then it's you guys, and then it's the DNR, and you know, so on and so forth.
and Karen, I believe there's a section already there with a couple of names, so.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want us not to be the first person, you know, they contact. But I also want them to know that if they're going to do a Healthy Lakes project, they're not going to you guys, unless you want to take that on. Oh,
Oh, you were unmuted. You're good. Now you're muted. Karen, you're muted now. You were unmuted prior.
oh, got it. Sorry.
Okay,
Brain fog. Sorry.
The county does have the capacity to take on some of the Healthy Lakes if Dave gets overrun. So I don't want Dave, you guys just to be so
and
overwhelmed.
especially if they're
Yes, if it
areas
starts
beyond
booming.
Rome.
Yep.
It definitely is in your.
Yeah,
bailiwick then.
Yeah, so I have actually been doing Healthy Lakes and Rivers programs on other lakes in the county. So if you guys ever feel, Dave, especially if you feel overwhelmed
Mhm.
or anything with that, we will step in
That'd be a good thing.
100%. Yeah.
And And then Karen, as towards, my comments here on the pamphlet, like everything we discussed still holds and everything, and I think we're still good on pamphlet design stuff as we've gone so far. Just wanted to reiterate for the peanut gallery at home and everybody here, somewhat of what we had discussed and some of that approach to the literature.
I think the biggest thing I can do is give people, I mean, I don't know that they're that interested in, and I guess they might be who to call and who to contact, but I think they also want to know what they can do. And I think if we, if I put in there your part, in the 9 key element plan, something like that, and give them some options, I think that would probably kind of help.
That's gonna overlap substantially also with this homeowner brochure we're talking about too, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's really good because then it's like, and I think the verbiage I sent Karen to that I was thinking of is like, if you're interested in how your property can, contribute to this, or if you have general questions for 9 key element, but there's definitely, then contact, county at whatever, but then, that's why, I really think that it's good to have that part there where it's like, hey, so if you want to get involved as a homeowner and you're in Rome, here's this local organization and here's the other partners and here's, but making sure that, they have options to engage, especially maybe some, they don't necessarily want to go straight to local government. That's what I'm feeling.
We always want to keep referencing homeowner, or should we say property owner?
Yeah.
If we have properties that don't have homes on them, at beach clubs, you got upstream properties. So I think maybe we should be putting the emphasis on property owner.
Yep.
Good point.
I think I mistakenly interchanged the terms occasionally, but it does say property owner on our grant, so that's what we are focused on.
And then I'll look at my packet.
Done, you
We'll
just
kind of
got
have
one
two
that-
separate ones, one for question.
Now, I don't want to,
I should have brought that along, but is that something we're gonna use there? I was hoping to put that in our arrowhead line.
There is a section on the website. I don't know what it's called, how you can help or how you can get involved. And that might be the basis for some of this brochure.
Yeah.
We're not starting from scratch on hardly any of this.
Right.
So it's pulling-
I mean, before I do anything, I'm obviously going to pass it through everybody. This is our thing, including Kyle and Anna. So, yeah, I think, this isn't, I'm not a brochure designer by trade. I don't know anything about this. I kind of just do it. And so hopefully you guys will be able to guide me and get me to, what we need to say and how we need to say it. So we're just trying to give out information. Our main goal in any of this is to give out information and tell people where they can get it. Those are the two things that we should be good at.
I mean, we're not really all that involved on that many on the ground activities. We're more educational.
Right.
so one thing I wanted to add in here, when we're taking consideration for the property owner brochure design, and this is something that's in the kind of condensed, the highlight. So I handed out here the highlighted milestones, but there's one for engaging upstream property owners, folks who aren't on the lake. Maybe they're, around Plainfield, or they're in Leola and they're 20 miles from the lake, the Tri-Lakes. So that's something we might want to consider as, like, right now the county's working on an agricultural producer handout, 14-mile watershed, the watershed plan upstream. But, I feel like there's a ton of work that we've already done for lakes owners and lakeshore properties. And there's a lot of work that's been done and is working on agricultural production. And, and our CSR already exists in Sand County. I think maybe there's a really good opportunity for us to expand into those, upstream applications. So just, keeping that in mind. I think I've heard it mentioned before. But, something in there when we're looking at those properties, the property owners, like you were saying, people who might have a beach club but be a little bit further away from the lake, maybe, and that's something too that watershed alliances are quite well known for, is having the capacity for that. Like when you look at the the Fox Wolf River Watershed Alliance, almost the entirety of that is upstream stuff. It's not at Lake Winnebago, it's not at Lake Butamore, it's not even on Lake, it's not even about so much lake, the rivers, as so much as the wider watershed and community around that. So just something that I think might be an opportunity for some significant growth.
Just so you know, Kyle, I agree with you 150%, but I'm going to tell you right now, we do not have the capacity.
Okay.
And so I agree with you. I think it's something we should look at in the future when we can. We have got our hands full just trying to inform the people around the lakes. So I want to do that. That would be my goal. But right now we have to work with the people we're trying to influence the most. And what we've determined is our basic goal is to work on improving our lakes so that we can, be good representatives of the watershed. That's what so that if we do get to the point where we can go to a producer-led group, we can then say to them, we're doing our part, so we will hope that you will join us and do what you can to improve the watershed. That's how we kind of came together. And so, I think I want to be realistic, and I just don't see us, unless one of you guys wants to work on it, but I don't have any capacity right now.
So Karen, that is something where, we have the DNR and we have the county that has been forming those relationships with, I don't want to say upstream, but yes, their agricultural neighbors. And that is something that we have the capacity for, is to do more outreach with the producers in the area and then to reach out to lakes groups. So if you think about the county, we're kind of the middlemen, and that's exactly how it happened for the farmers of the Rocha Creek, right? I had the capacity to get them involved in a group, but then I also have relationships built with packers. Well, now I'm kind of the middleman between them, and you guys can just use us for those relationships, to form those relationships. We're not necessarily asking that you guys go out and, form a producer-led watershed group. We want you to be involved, but that's kind of on our end, what we'll do for those kind of relationship formings. But if we can use, if we want to have, say in the future, a more in-depth brochure of the entire watershed, then we already have a baseline using your guys's, whatever brochure you come up with. And then if the future producer-led group comes up with a brochure, we can just, marry those into one that can be used, everywhere.
And to clarify, I'm not referring to producers at all. I'm thinking of, folks who might be, say, in Leola Marsh, and they have 10 acres of land adjacent to one of the drainage areas, and they're not quite lakes owners, but they're lakes adjacent, they're in the watershed, but they're just homeowners, or they have hunting property, something where they're not a producer, they don't own much property, it's just some expansion, consideration for how in the future we can kind of expand from the lake and work our way outwards,
I was
right?
kind of thinking about that too, about riparian ownership
Yeah.
beyond producers. Obviously there's some below Arrowhead Dam, so once you're beyond the lakes.
Right.
And of course, most of the upstream has been straightened and ditched and is either in drainage district or was in drainage district. I honestly don't know if you get into the very upper end near Plainfield, whether you get into any more of the 14 mile that isn't.
Right, and
I'm not familiar.
And I don't know
To know
either.
about
That's why I'm holding the first meetings in Plainfield, because I feel like that's an area that really could use some expansion of engagement. So that's why I'm hosting it there, and I'm going to work really hard on Plainfield. But if we look at, the milestones on the fourth one for public outreach and stuff, it just has, educate non-lake riparian owners on best management for stream banks. And that's just kind of what I had as a thought there. And that's you'll notice the time frame for that is just listed as 0 to 10 years, just something to keep in mind, as the group grows.
Throughout.
Yeah.
And Kyle, I would, if I were in your position, I would also go to Tri Lakes and try to talk with them because they have a lot of influence. So I would definitely get them involved with the, because I know Tri-Lakes membership isn't just the people who live on the lakes. So they have databases and all that kind of stuff, and they can go and work on that portion of it. But I think we, with our group size and all, and the things that we're doing, realistically, that's a goal in the future. But right now we need to concentrate, I think, on what we can handle. And that would be working on our group of people that we're familiar with and that we live with. So, and to be honest with you, we have made inroads in the last few years, but we've had a pandemic that kind of slowed us down. So we're doing our best, but it's been difficult, I think. So, and I'm not saying, we're not going to do it. I'm saying, I think we need to grow our capacity and all those kind of things and then work on it. But I think that Tri-Lakes is a good opportunity for you too. I don't know what your outreach to them has been, but.
Yeah, I was just mentioning as something to keep in mind.
Right.
Jumping ahead there where, there's something to keep in mind as things move forward.
Well, I'm an overwhelmed, so.
Right, I don't want, when we get back around to it in this agenda, I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure. We can finish up the, discussion here for section 5. I didn't mean to derail things too much, just a little bit of discussion on consideration for the types of pamphlets being made. But when we talk about the 9 key element plan milestones, I'll kind of go over that a little bit more as towards what specifically I'm seeing as expectations for like 14 mile and responsibilities and everything else. So I hope I can clarify it a little bit better there. So.
Okay, I think kind of have some direction on how Karen, Kyle, and others will be working develop 9 key element brochure. It's appropriate for our current audience. So next item is Healthy Lakes planting map. I'm trying to remember just what that was. I think it was to
Wasn't that to?
show locations of people that
Right.
have done projects, right?
Exactly.
Kind of
Exactly. So if we can come up with a big map
we
that
would we would print, but then could be updated annually, and it might end up being more a website type thing than a hard copy printing after the initial outreach with it, so that we can keep it up to date then.
I think the intent also was to hand this out to people who choose to get in their boat, go around the lakes and
Yeah, but
Yeah.
look at some
I
examples of
think
what
we
can
were
be
talking,
accomplished.
yeah, one and two
Yeah.
kind of boat tours, lakes, and
Mhm.
or maybe kind of self-guided tour as well.
And then we can put a copy of it on our big map of the watershed, like a copy of that little map. And people, if we talk to them, we could say, well, you live here. There's a person over here that just did a Healthy Lakes.
So
Person over here,
will it
And
help
then,
with that budget item is that I actually was just doing this earlier today is I'm looking at doing that whole watershed interactive map I mentioned in the first meeting. But part of that too is I can have, it's not much trouble at all when it comes to a story map to just have a separate part of it embedded. So what we could do is I already have a story map now I need to publish, but what you can do is then have it embedded as a web map on a website, and I can just set it to be just the 14 lakes or just I could even do the Sherwood, Camelot, and Arrowhead individual lakes that people can kind of scroll around and zoom in on the satellite view at their house. But what's really nice with the story maps is that people can make accounts or can enter in a submission, and then I can review it, or somebody can review it. So what we could do is piggyback off of the GIS map I'm making already and the practices, because I'd like to catalog all the different county projects we do over the years and all the different, everything from, on the lakes to upper 14 mile. So if then you guys have information on projects you're doing for Healthy Lakes, I can, somebody, I myself or somebody working on the project can drop a pin. And whenever we have volunteers who want to take pictures and do a little bio blurb or something, you know, and that's great, like Karen was saying, because then you can open up the map and you can show it to people. And then, you know, there'll be this pin next to the house. It's like, oh, what's that? Oh, well, you know, your you know, neighbor Archibald III was doing this, and they put in a rain garden. Here's some pictures, and look how much their grandkids enjoy it. And here's the benefits. You know, all that kind of information can be in that story map, but there can be a considerable learning curve with mapping and GIS and embedding that sort of thing. And that's something I'm already working on and proficient with. So definitely, you know, would take any kind of projects that have been done, and I can integrate that into the existing.
So Kyle, would you have to know about how to, because I've been on the maps on the DNR and they're hard to figure out how to do layers and stuff.
Yeah,
So is it the same thing?
no, so it's specifically published as a story map. You don't need to load the layers. I can have all that done on the application side. And so when they bring it up, all those layers are there already. And if they want it, and we can even have different versions of the same map, like, you know, to make it easier, so you don't have to navigate layers. You can just click on, you know, map that shows habitat and map that shows, you know, agriculture. You don't have to flip between them. And we can do that with embedding on different pages and different things I can have pre-done. The layers can already be populated. And you can even actually go on like a tour mode where you hit the button and it kind of like walks you through either chronologically or size, or you can have it kind of give you a tour as well. So
Can I ask really quickly, who has seen an online, like an Esri story map before? Are we familiar with it? Okay, I'm going to send out an example of what he's describing.
okay.
And they're very neat. They're used for education outreach. Several watersheds around the state have utilized them. They're really
Very
clickable
user-friendly.
and fun, and they're very cool. So
It's-
I will send out an
We're all
example.
for usable and fun.
It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it's just like Google Maps. If you've ever opened up Google Earth Engine, you know, it's just like that. You can zoom in, scroll around, there'll be little pop-ups with different things are, and I can handle the technical side of all that. So
Oh, that would be
So
great.
that would be outstanding to have on our website.
right, and so what I can do is I actually only would have to post one map, and then we can just set however you want, wherever you want the maximum extent of that map to be. I can cut that out and embed it on the website. So it'll actually show up. It won't be a set. It could even be within the page, like how when you embed YouTube videos or pictures, it would be right there on the website. So I can do that.
That would be great. So this is the kind of stuff that we love because we're trying to educate the people and they can see it. They are more inclined to want to do it. So
Right.
this is outstanding. I mean, I was hoping you could do that. We were talking about doing this at all of our meetings so that we can get people to, you know, want to do the Healthy Lakes projects. Because, you know, some people may not, you know, live on a lake where there's a lot of Healthy Lakes projects. So this is a way to show them.
Yeah, or like the fish sticks we put in was that last week already? Man, my shoulders are still sore. So you know, it's like that. Now those pictures, somebody can drop a pin on the story map. We can add the pictures of all standing around in progress photos. So you pick up, you know, scroll over, click on it, and it would open up with like an album, and then you can have your comments on there. And there's room for a short blurb where it kind of like describes what we did and how we did it. So and that would just be on there. You know, you're just looking at, you know, Camelot, you're like trolling around for fishing spots, and you're like, oh, what's this pin on the map? So definitely do that.
But by the time we pull together the storyboards, photos and that kind of stuff though, do you think this is another one that can be a high priority to try to get done soon, or is this something that's going to take a while?
Well, the one thing I want to get done soon is I want to have a map for the farmer's market. A map with all that. I mean, that's pretty easy, isn't it, Kyle? Just to
I
get
can,
a
I can
map.
put together a map for the farmer's market. And I sent you some of those drafts for the brochure, but you know, whatever scale it's at, I can futz around, and Sam from our department can help a little bit too for scaling and things. You know, I can put the elements in and he can help me fine tune it. So that's not too much of an issue at all. The actual story map and getting it embedded on the website stuff, that's going to be a project for after harvest. I can get the basic story map up there and just show like land use and where the tri-lakes are, so people can scroll around, find their house and see that they're in the watershed. That's about as far as I'm gonna be able to get this summer, and then, because I'm working on a bunch of other stuff this spring, but then fall, once things freeze up again, that'll be a solid winter project, so.
So
Yeah, I think
I
that's good.
agree, there's something we want to get usable right away, a more simplified version, and then add the complexity.
Right, so it'll just be a 2D printable map. Very soon, Karen and I can work on that, or anybody else who wants to, cooperate on that as towards the specific elements wanted on that map. I can cook that out relatively easily. The interactable version is just gonna take me some time to put all the elements together. But what's nice is, again, anybody with an account who wants to make an account can then sign on and make updates. So, Karen doesn't have to be the only one updating story map, and even homeowners, if they wanted to, they can put the thing in, put their own photos in, and put in their own testimonials, and engage on that. And maybe I'll just have to do a little editorial in case they're trying to outdo their neighbor or something, or being mean. But, aside from that, yeah, it is pretty user friendly in that regard. Of course, if people are trying to outdo their neighbors, with butterfly gardens and shoreline plantings, I'm not really gonna. Thank you.
And then really the last thing is, we put the state of the lakes in there, which is something I know we want to continue. Actually, I don't really anticipate that we're going to use that much grant money towards state of the lakes. I added it to the application more so to show our share. So they reach our 25% more easily. Because initially we were just looking at trying to do as much as we could with volunteer hours, and it looked like we were gonna fall short of ways by doing that. So by adding this and using our funding and other donations and stuff to keep going with State of the Lakes, that makes it easier for us to meet our 25% grant share.
Dave, what has to be done on that soon? Do we need to decide, to events like we did first State of the Lakes? Or we could do a short breakfast version of it? And do we need to, if it's going to be indoors, we have to reserve I think, right? Probably the sooner the better.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, it's never too early to get started. We were initially trying to do it kind of early in the season to get people interested, and before they start the fertilizer applications and those kinds of things. And then with COVID, we skipped a year and then ended up being late in the year because of the restrictions kind of.
Yeah, if we're gonna do an indoor Memorial Weekend event, we need to really start working on that. Yes.
So
I think we should have a separate meeting just to
Just
plan
on
that.
that?
Yeah.
Well, okay, can we at least decide, are we going to do events like we did the first State of the Lakes? Most recent one was outdoors, which presented a number of issues that we maybe don't want to face again. Does anybody have an opinion right now? I mean, we can do the detailed planning this time of life. There may be some things that have to happen right away. Thoughts?
Well, if you keep it indoors, you're taking the weather out of it.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my preference, I think. If we can all. What were you think, Jerry?
No, I agree.